It's 6 p.m. Posted time of today's meeting. This time I'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, we have a quorum.
First, I'd like to recognize Johnny, Commissioner Hutchins to lead the pledge and Commissioner Bridges to give tonight's invocation.
Everyone stand, face the flag, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Let us pray. The gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, the many blessings you've given to us, Father. Thank you for the rain that you sent to cool the earth, refresh the earth, Lord. Lord, we pray for our first responders. Just ask you to be with them, Lord, and the service people around the world that work night and day to keep us safe. We thank you for the opportunity to serve. And as we go into our meeting tonight, just pray that everything that's said and done will be within your will. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Next, recognition of any elected officials present. And next, I'll recognize Commissioner Hutchins to recognize any veterans present.
If veterans would stand, start back in the corner, would you give your name, your service? Steve White, submarine. Do it again. Jim Worker, United States Army. Jim Cash, U.S. Air Force.
David Cotton, United States Navy.
Johnny, U.S. Army. We've got a veteran pin that's got a logo with the veterans on it. All of them have one. If you don't have one, raise your hand and Phyllis will give you one. We appreciate your service.
Thank you all for your service. Next, recognition of any law enforcement present.
Dan Howell, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Worker, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you all for your service as well. And last, recognize any county department heads.
Chris Warren, planning.
Vicky Hanson, Health and Human Services.
Lloyd Robert, Staff Attorney. Nick Roswell, IT.
Sherry Lavender, Tax.
Okay, thank you, guys. First item on the agenda tonight is motion to adopt the proposed agenda. We've been presented this in our packet, so at this time, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion second, all in favor, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimous. Our next item is public comment. Madam Clerk.
The public comment portion of a Board of Commissioners meeting is an opportunity for persons wishing to appear before the board to do so. Citizen speakers will be acknowledged in the order in which they signed up to speak and will address all comments to the board as a whole and not one individual commissioner. Speakers will address the board from the speaker's podium and will begin their remarks by stating their name and address. Discussion between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. Public comment is not intended to require the board to answer any impromptu questions. Speakers are expected to be civil in their language and presentation and are prohibited from using profanity or making threats of violence or personal attacks against any person. All comments from the speakers shall be issue-oriented and directly related to a subject that the commissioners have oversight and authority. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to address the board. A speaker is not permitted to share, reserve, or relinquish any remaining time allocated to them to another speaker. Any comments where the primary purpose is to promote a business or candidacy shall not be allowed.
Thank you, ma'am. We have one tonight. I'd like to recognize Dr. Jenny White.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Dr. Jenny White. I reside at 141 Autumn Woods Drive in Kings Mountain, and I am a retired teacher, coach, administrator, and Cleveland County taxpayer. And I'm here tonight to ask for you to please restore the $500,000 back into the budget that was cut from Cleveland County Schools operational funds. The purpose of that money, as far as operations are concerned, does not matter as far as how many kids are sitting in seats. One of the reasons that I understand that you all cut that money was because there is a decrease in enrollment within Cleveland County Schools. And that seems to be a couple of hundred students. Currently, Cleveland County Schools for the 2026 school year had right at 14,000 students. So we have about 325 students in private schools within the county, and that is less than 5% of the total number of students that we currently serve. So looking at the fact that Cleveland County Schools is going to have to absorb the local funding for the raises that the state has provided, they will provide it for state-funded schools for employees, but not for locally funded employees. That has to come from you all. The new health care plan is going to increase for $425 per employee in the Cleveland County School District, which is the greatest employer in Cleveland County. So if we're taking money away from the school system, ultimately that money is going to have to come from somewhere, and that may mean that the Cleveland County Schools would have to reduce the amount of supplement that they currently provide to teachers. That supplement is currently 28th in the state as far as where it ranks in how well we're paying our supplement. And that gets us better teachers. Better teachers take care of our children. That gives us an opportunity for Cleveland County Schools to be a better school system for our children. Finally, Raleigh is currently funding school systems at the 50th. We are last, dead last in the nation. We are $5,600 below the national average per pupil expenditure. Raleigh doesn't know or care about children that sleep in Kaiser or Shelby or Kings Mountain, but you all do. You go to church with their parents, you sit beside of them in restaurants. They need that money restored back to the Cleveland County School budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have been provided the items of the consent agenda. Are there any discussion? If there's no discussion, I entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Kevin,
You're to talk during the public hearing for Boston.
No, I was on the public comment open.
For
Oh.
Boston?
Ron, yes, you signed the public sign sheet, but that's fine. Come on up.
No, I signed 2 sheets.
Yes.
Okay.
One of them might have just been a sentence.
Come on up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had you marked down for
No
the
problem.
Boston
No
public
worries, I
hearing.
thought I had signed.
Well, there's quite a few
Yeah.
public hearings tonight, so
All right.
go ahead.
Anyway, I'm Ron McCollum. I live at 616 Kaiser Lawndale Road. All I've ever done is work with people. Kind of the buzzword in the social work world these days is, what is your why? Y'all been in meetings? Everything I'm going to make a comment on is my why. And the first is the $1.5 million. This is based on a conversation with Mr. Bridges yesterday. I consider her a friend. We've drank coffee together before. Mr. Hutchins, you and I sat together at the NAACP meeting. My understanding, and this is for clarification for me and people in the room, y'all gave unbudgeted money to the tune of $1 million last year to the schools. It was the same request this year. And given that you got to balance your own budget, you could only give $500,000. That's based on conversations that I had with Mr. Bridges. So that's the education part. I would add to that, given y'all's influence in Raleigh and former, I'll just say Tim Moore. Mo Green, under the pavilion during the last campaign, said lottery money is not going into education budgets on the state level. It's going to create the education budgets. It's not going to supplement the budgets. I'm going to talk a little bit what Ted Alexander has done for this county in a particular way, in a positive way. Ted, and for the time he's in there, I'm blanking. I have a lot of blank thoughts lately. Y'all know who I mean, our current representative. They can change that. The lottery money that was promised to be in the education budget come to local school systems through the education budget. We've got three, soon to be 5 casinos in this state. 2 in the Cherokee lands. If you haven't been, they have a casino in Murphy, Qualla Boundary and Murphy. It's been all over the news that Catawba Nation that had to buy land from Cleveland County folk. They're talking of 2 more. The Lumbee don't want any part of the crooked world of casinos. Secondly, I know Mr. Bridges mostly because of farms and farming. Y'all have done more than any commission that I know of in the state of North Carolina. Agriculture may still be the #1 ticket. Chickens and cattle, if you include soy and corn, etc. I have a lot of dear friends. That can all go to the wayside as far as I'm concerned, and go to China and Russia and everybody else. What I care about is local farmers. That's where Mr. Bridges and I connect. Y'all have given more to Cleveland County farmers markets than any commission that I know. That time? Okay. Thank you for the new site. Thank you for all that. I'll send y'all a letter to cover the other 1.5 pages I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. As I said earlier, we have,
I didn't get a second.
I'm working on that.
I'm sorry, sir.
As I said earlier, the consent agenda is before us. Is there any discussion? I hear none. There was a second before. Was there? You seconded it? Or you made the motion and Johnny seconded? On the consent agenda.
That was proposed agenda. We didn't get that far.
Okay, so is there a motion for the consent
So
agenda?
moved. We'll do it this time.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All right, so now we have a motion and a second. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that carries unanimous. Next item on the agenda is public hearings. Madam Clerk?
After the public hearing has been opened, citizen speakers will be acknowledged in the order in which they signed up to speak and will address all comments to the board as a whole and not one individual commissioner. Speakers will address the board from the speaker's podium and will begin the remarks by saying their name and address. Discussions between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. A public hearing is not intended to require the board to answer any impromptu questions. Speakers are expected to be civil in their language and presentation. All comments from the speaker shall be directly related to the subject of the public hearing. Each speaker is allotted 5 minutes to address the board. A speaker is not permitted to share, reserve, or relinquish any remaining time allocated to them to another speaker.
All right, so we have several tonight. Looks like 5 total. So first, I'll recognize Chris Martin to come forward. This is Planning Department Case 25-19. This is the Town of Falston Future Land Use Plan Adoption. Chris?
Thank you, Chairman. I've got, as the Chairman stated, we've got 5 items for your consideration tonight. The first is a request from one of our towns. It's the Town of Falston, and they have asked this board to consider amending our land use plan to include their newly adopted land use plan. We have a similar relationship, and we do this for several of our other towns. There's 5 towns to be exact that we have included within our under our umbrella land use plan, and they include Grover, Bellwood, Earl, Mooresboro, and Lawndale. And this action is actually supported by our land use plan. Our land use plan under items number 7, 8, and 9 suggest to continue funding staff to provide services to our municipalities. And as you know, we provide a lot of services to our small towns, such as building inspections, solid waste administration, and many planning services. It also suggests that we provide information on our website for these small towns on how to walk through a permitting process. And then it also encourages staff to participate in any planning initiatives that a small town may initiate, such as creating a new land use plan. And so for Fallston, I'll give you a little background for them for planning and development. They're a small town. They're located off of we're at the intersection of Highway 18 and 182 in the northern part of our county. They first adopted the county's Unified Development Ordinance in 1998. However, at the time, they did not establish any zoning districts. Several years later, they adopted the county's land use plan, and we had a number of towns, including Fallston, that went through that process around 2010. But at this point, in 2025, Fallston has now decided to formalize and formally adopt their own unique land use plan. They've recognized that we've had some growth. They felt some growth in the area. They recognize that they're at the intersection of two North Carolina highways, and they want to plan for the future and help guide that growth activity that they're feeling in their part of the county. And so they contracted with Benchmark Planning. That's a planning consultant out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's actually the same consultant that worked with the county, with us, back in 2021 to adopt our ordinance, or our land use plan, I'm sorry. And so after walking with Benchmark Planning through that process, which included public input meetings and a public hearing, they formally adopted the land use plan unique to Fallston on June 2nd of this year. And this slide, what I wanted to do is just remind ourselves what exactly a land use plan is. I know we always mention it when we're talking about our zoning decisions and rezoning cases, text amendments. But the purpose of a plan is to provide guidance to communities when making policy decisions or adopting budgets pertaining to land use and development. And it does that by providing vision for your community. It helps to identify goals, and it can have suggestions on how to achieve those goals. What a plan is not, it's not law, it's not a policy, and it does not establish zoning districts. It's really only to serve as a guide. So our general statutes tells us to acknowledge that guide when we're establishing law and when we're adopting policy that pertains to land use and development regulation. And so for Fallston, they have adopted one now formally that's unique to Fallston. It consists of 2 documents, and it's just like the other towns that are under our umbrella. If I've got a copy of our county plan here, but if you turn to the back, you'll find a section it's a chapter just for our small towns. And so the plan that they've created with Benchmark Planning is similar to those other towns. It's a 2-pager. It's got 1 page that describes the town, describes the character, and really describes the vision that they're seeking for their community. And then it also has a map that's associated with that plan that suggests to the town how to achieve that vision. So it's got some land use designations on it. It has a commercial, business, industrial area highlighted, and then rural residential and the regular residential area that's also highlighted. Fallston created this by holding public input meetings. They evaluated where their utility services were to help show where places made sense, where industry uses made sense. And then they held a public hearing and heard comment from their citizens and then formally adopted the plan. And this slide, this shows you what the 2 pages would look like. This isn't it's a PDF, so it didn't relay well on the slide, but it gives you a visual of what these plans for these small towns look like. And so tonight, general statute requires that anytime we amend our plan, we hold a public hearing. So that's what we're asking you to do tonight. And then you may approve or deny Fallston's request to include their plan in our land use plan. I can answer any questions.
Anybody on the board have questions for Chris at this time?
Just for clarification, if we pass this, someone wants to do something in the town, will they have their own planning board, or will it come through our planning board?
Yeah, so at this time, with just a plan, this is just a guiding document. It's not zoning districts. So at this time, a property owner would still go to the town of Fallston for the official zoning approval and not our staff.
Right, okay.
If Fallston takes the next step and does adopt zoning districts and works with our office to administer those, then the town would, as you're describing, the town would be responsible for deciding on zoning districts and hearing any rezoning cases. So council would be responsible at that point in time.
Is there a recommendation from the planning board?
The planning board reviewed this in December of 2025, and their recommendation actually went to council. Council shared the plan with our planning board and then asked for any feedback that they may have. And the planning board did have some comments. They suggested to Fallston to really look at your sewer and water services when you're trying to figure out where your industrial uses should be. They reminded Fallston that 18 is a developing road, and to protect that corridor and protect those driveway and access points on 18. So there were some comments back from planning board to the town of Fallston. And they recommended approval of that.
Any other questions? All right, so at this time, then we'll declare the public hearing open. I wanted to clarify to make sure, Mr. McCollum, do you want to speak on this or was,
Yes, sir, I would.
you would like to speak on this as well?
Yes,
Okay, come forward then.
I thought there were others. Sure. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I live in Lawndale, but I've lived a large part of my life in Fallston, going to church, have a child went to school there. And I have a lot of friends there, including members of the board. I encourage you to approve it. They're probably within a year of having a city park. My friends at TGS Engineering use two words, connectivity. And again, I'm blanking. Anyway, in my judgment, Fallston has the ability to become the next Bowling Springs. Connectivity with the trails being built could be connected to Lawndale. I referenced Senator Alexander earlier. Cleveland County has the newest blue trail in the state of North Carolina, which is the first broad river from Marion to the South Carolina line. So the possibility to put recreation on the map for Cleveland County, I know some folks, some of y'all want Cleveland County to be the next Charlotte. I changed my mind on who I was going to vote for when I heard a farmer's daughter speak. Please allow this small community to do what all of y'all believe in, which is self-determination. Connect to Lawndale, connect to Shelby, connect to Waco eventually, connect to the black folks in one side of Lawndale where there are no sidewalks, make the entire county either rideable or walkable. Anyway, and it would start for me with giving Fallston the same thing that you've granted at least 3 or 4 other municipalities. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. McCall was the only one that signed up to speak, so with that, the public hearing is now closed. So it's back to the board to deliberate. Chris, you got anything else you'd like to add?
No, at this time.
Board have any questions?
If the board don't have any more questions, I make a motion, we'll approve it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second to approve. All in favor? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right, so we're on to planning case 26-09. This is to add section 12-164 This is a development standard for data centers to the Unified Development Ordinance. Mr. Martin?
So our next item is actually a amendment request from staff. And it's a text amendment to help establish some basic land development standards for the use of data centers. The objective of these standards is to promote compatibility for any future data centers that are developed in the county to be compatible with neighboring properties, to help minimize any potential noise coming from these facilities, and to encourage communication with any future facilities with our utility providers, such as electric and water. There's also some language that is to assist with efficient response for our first responders in case of an emergency need at the facility. Data centers are a changing industry across the nation. Our data use and data demands has drastically increased, and the complexity of that data has just become more so. So our facilities that we're seeing across the nation are changing as well. You know, the scale and the size of them are changing to really accommodate that data demand that we're putting on our infrastructure. But a data center, defined by the Census Bureau's industrial classification, which is what our ordinance is based off of, is basically an establishment that's engaged in providing infrastructure and hosting data processing services. We've seen them around Cleveland County, but none necessarily in the county's jurisdiction, but we have seen them in our region, in our communities surrounding Cleveland County at different scales. But we are seeing that they are growing in scale across the nation. And really our goal, staff's goal with this ordinance was to come up with some basic land development standards for these data centers with the larger scale so that they're not a negative impact on adjoining properties. Our current ordinance, and I think just going over the current ordinance will further show you why we're coming up with these additional standards. But our current ordinance, it permits them only in the heavy and industrial zoning districts, and that would not change with the draft amendment that you have before you. So they would still remain only permitted in the 2 industrial districts. However, there's no specific setbacks unique to data centers. They would only have to comply with the zoning district minimum, which would be 10 feet from a side property line, 30 feet from a road, and then minimum vegetation requirements around the property lines. So our goal with this is to add to that. We've really learned from some other uses in the past, such as solar farms. You know, when the scale of those grew, we really saw the impact. So we've learned from, walking through those other processes and those other ordinances that, what we're trying to do here is to get ahead and have something in place so that if we do have or if we are approached by a data center project, then we've got something basic and that we feel confident that it would lead to compatibility with the area. So what's being proposed that you've got in your packet would apply to new data centers. It would increase the setbacks from the 10 from property lines to 100 feet from property lines, and then 500 feet from residential zoning districts. So it really puts these facilities off the property lines so those neighboring uses wouldn't be impacted by those. There's some additional screening requirements, particularly around the generators. Most of these data center facilities have a lot of generators to ensure that they're continuing to work. And as you know, large generators make noise. So our ordinance would require some screening around those generators, and it would require the generators be enclosed. Those 2 things I think can help minimize that sound coming from the property. And then it would also require that testing of generators only be done during daylight hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it would limit the testing hours so that they couldn't be ran at night. The ordinance that's proposed also requires that any new facility receive a letter from the service provider, electric or water, showing that there is capacity and that it could be served. Other requirements that you'll find require that the facility submit a site plan showing emergency access, and that it also show that they gain approval from any other local or state agency, such as DEQ. With that, staff feels that these standards applied uniquely to data centers could help any future projects be compatible. And this would be an ordinance amendment. And so we do share it with the planning board. We have actually shared this item with them for 3 meetings in May, June, and July. And they really worked with staff to help come up with some of these standards. We wanted something that made sense and that was reasonable and that worked for both the company and the adjoining property owners. And the planning board ultimately unanimously approved this request and recommend approval. And so tonight we're asking you to hold a public hearing and consider planning board's recommendation, and you may approve or deny the request.
Thank you, Chris. Board, anybody have questions?
I have one question. I think you probably covered under utilities that, I hope it's covered enough. Are you considering a difference between a data center and an AI data center?
This draft version would not. It would not differentiate between those two.
Okay, that would make a huge difference in water and power necessities.
Well, as I understand it, we're just trying to be proactive, because as it stands now, they come in and meet our requirements, there wouldn't be much we could do, so we're trying to, get ahead of it.
That's correct.
And you
Yep.
do have utilities that they have to have from the provider that they can.
Yep.
so
Us,
that-
us not being the utility provider, we're not the engineer that's reviewing the utility plan. But what we did want to do is we wanted to try to connect those two. We wanted to try to,
So-
make sure that we're doing our job and connecting the developer with that utility provider. And I think the good thing about our ordinance is it already only allowed them in the industrial districts. So hopefully, any neighbors would also be a similar or an industrial type of use.
So for those here tonight and watching, can you expand on that just a little bit more? Because this is only gonna be allowed in those zoning districts.
That's right.
This still would require a zoning request. If somebody bought a piece of property, 200 acres, and wanted to build a data center, they still have to get the zoning classification changed first.
Yep. So current ordinance and also with this draft version, data centers are only permitted in the 2 industrial districts. So a potential developer would need to look for a property that's already zoned industrial in one of the industrial areas of the county. Or if they find a property that's not industrial, they would need to come to this board for public hearing. And it would allow this board a chance to look at the area and see if the proposal makes sense in a rezoning case.
In a statement addressing Tony, but data center, can't this apply to all data centers?
This would apply to all data.
All
all
of them,
data
or
centers. All data centers established after the date of approval, if approved.
Yeah, but even the AI.
It would.
Yeah, but the AI probably would be bigger, is that?
Well,
Still
you
can't
Use
apply
more,
to
more
them.
utilities.
utility requirements
Yeah.
are gonna be double,
Mhm.
or more. So I think that should be very well laid out in any plan. I think we need a plan, and I'm certainly, thank you for what you're doing, but I think we need a plan that covers that. And I know this is the draft to get started, so I understand that. But before I would feel good about going to the next level of this, I think we really need a study on the AI data center versus the standard data center, because there is a tremendous difference, and that's the biggest issue that I would have.
But Chris, isn't it correct to say that there's also bills in the General Assembly currently that will impact this if they pass, so this will have to be revisited?
Yes, it would be. And there is a Senate bill that's not passed yet, but it seems to have a lot of traction, but it does address a lot the utility concerns that we're seeing across the state. So if that does pass, then I think that at that point in time, we could come back to our ordinance to make sure we're in compliance with any new state law.
Any other questions? All right, well, we're hearing none. At this time, we'll declare the public hearing open. And ironically, there was no one signed up to speak to that, so I guess it's now closed. So we're back to the board to deliberate. Chris, you have anything else? I think it's been pretty well stated that this is a stopgap measure because we don't have anything on the books, and it's gonna have to be adjusted as we learn more and as about these in general, and also as we get more direction from or additional direction from the state.
I would say it's a good starting point. I can remember, as you mentioned, Chris, about the solar farms, when we started at that, we had to start somewhere from the ground up, and we all are aware it could change, but I think it is a good starting point to have something on the books, so I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All right, hear none. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Yours, I think there's a mistake on my notes. Yeah, all right, sorry about that. You put 15 on there twice.
Oh.
Planning case,
So it's be 2614.
yours is the same too, David.
Yeah.
All right, so planning case 24-16, this is a request to rezone parcels 3250, 5011, and 5013 from residential to manufactured homes and parks. Is that where we're supposed to be?
That's
All right, so, Chris?
You said manufactured homes and parks. The case that we have next is 2615
To residential, general
Oak Grove Road.
Okay, well, pardon me then. All right, so let's try this again. So planning case 26-15, request to rezone parcels 21945, 21944, and 21924 from general business to residential.
Sounds good. Next case is, the next three cases actually are our request to rezone property. The first being 3 parcels at Oak Grove Road. The applicant is the property owner, Mrs. Mona Johnson, and the property total is about 2 acres. She's asking to change it from a general business zoning to residential. The general business district, there are some differences between those two districts. As you can imagine, general business is your very traditional commercial district. It allows for a lot of retail, service, and professional type of uses. No residential uses are allowed in general business, and there's no minimum lot size. For the requested district, residential, it is, the request is changed it from general business to residential, and it's your basic R district, allowing single-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, and agricultural uses on half-acre minimum lot size. The property for consideration is along Oak Grove Road, just south of Moss Lake, and you can see the lake there to the north, the water in the picture on the slide. The surrounding uses are mostly residential, except for adjacent to the property, you do have the Kings Mountain boat landing and the dam. And the property is located east of Shelby, and it's shown on our land use map as in the primary growth area. So it's in the area that we expect to see a lot of development over the next 10 years. And the property's currently, well, there's 3 parcels. One of the parcels is vacant. There's a residence on one parcel, and then there's a shop or an accessory structure on one of the other parcels that Ms. Johnson owns. And the surrounding zoning districts include restricted residential and residential, similar and like the requested district. And then you can see that the surrounding land use designations are consistent with the property as being in that primary growth area. And tonight, we're asking the board hold a public hearing and consider a land use plan and the planning board's recommendation. I think I failed to put that slide on our PowerPoint, but planning board did review, and they noted that the requested district was similar as the adjoining zoning districts, and they saw it as an extension of that district, so they recommended approval. So if you hold the hearing and consider planning board's recommendation and any comments that you may hear, and you may approve or deny the request.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris before we open the public hearing? All right, so the public hearing is now open. No one signed up to speak for that. So it's now closed. So back to the board.
I'll make a motion we approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to say, I visited all these sites and, the signs were very visible at all the sites, and I appreciate that. You're doing a great job.
That's that long as that.
Any other discussion? I hear none, all in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Like that motion carries unanimous as well. All right. I apologize for being frazzled, but these numbers are all referenced wrong here, so give me just a second. So the next one should be case 26-16 rezoned. This is 1036 Long Branch Road from heavy industrial to light industrial.
Your next item for consideration is also a request to rezone. The applicant is the owner, Wesley Lell, and he's asking to change a 10-acre parcel from heavy industrial to light industrial.
Is that the right address?
That is not the right address. This one's on Long Branch Road at 1036.
Yeah,
Thank you.
1036 is on the staff report.
And it's parcel 57492. And I apologize for that. The requested district is LI, and the current district is HI, and they share a lot of uses, but there is some major differences. The HI is it leans more towards the manufacturing and fabrication industry, while the LI leans more towards warehousing, distribution, and also allows some of the same things as general business. There's no minimum lot size in either district. They do share a lot of those similar uses, such as salvage yards, warehousing. That's another similar use that you'd find. They share a lot of similar standards like buffering requirements and setback requirements as well. Property on Long Branch Road, you can see it's outlined in red on the slide. The surrounding property is it's mixed. There's some large tracts of land that are being farmed. There's some single-family dwellings, up and down Long Branch Road. But there's also a salvage yard across the road owned by the same property owner as the applicant, or is the applicant, Mr. Wesley Lell. The 10-acre tract that's being requested to change does have a shop building on the property. It's formerly been used as like an auto repair business. Our land use plan shows you that this parcel is located in that southeast part of the county along Long Branch Road, and there's a mixture of business and residential uses up and down Long Branch Road. That road connects Shelby and the Grover area of the county. And we have on this slide a street view that we pulled from the Google Maps showing you that shop. Our zoning map shows you that the surrounding districts include both industrial and residential on either side of this property. And our land use plan designates this area as secondary growth. The secondary growth is a vision for a community or an area showing more residential development, but it also states that industrial and commercial uses can be compliant or consistent with this area as long as they're in a smart area and in a place that makes sense, like near a crossroad or along a busy highway. We've shared this with our planning board. The planning board recommended approval. They noted that it's actually a down zone. It's already zoned heavy industrial. He's actually taken this step down. And they also commented that you already have some industrial zoning adjacent to the property. And with that, we ask that you hold a public hearing and consider comments and planning board recommendation and may approve or deny.
Does the board have any questions for Chris? All right, thank you, Chris. So at this time, the public hearing is now open. Mr. Lell asked to speak. Mr. Lell? Wes Lell?
Unless y'all have any questions.
Board have any questions for Mr. Lell? Thank you, sir. So with that, the public hearing is now closed. The item is before the board to deliberate.
There's no conversation about it. I'll just make the motion that we approve.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion second to approve planning request. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimous. All right, so this is 26-18, right? So this is the rezone Glassway and Redbird Lane, and it should be parcel 31976, 63209, and 31548,
That's correct. So there's
portion thereof.
this request is from an adjacent property owner, but he does have support from the property owner that you'll see on the petition. The requester and applicant is Mr. Brent Beeson, owner of the B&W fiberglass plant, which is on the adjacent property. And he's asking you to consider rezoning 16 acres that's made up of 3 parcels and a portion of the third. And you have a survey included with your application showing you that 16-acre boundary. And he's asking you to change that area from residential to match the zoning district of the fiberglass plant. So it'd go from residential to light industrial. And the property is located between 2 roads. It's located between Glassway and Redbird Lane. And again, you have a survey in which I've got on the board here showing you the outline of the 16 acres, and you'll see the 3 parcels involved. Current zoning district is residential, and the uses consist of houses, manufactured homes, minimum lot size, ½ acre, and no industrial uses are permitted there. The requested district is light industrial, and so no residential, but you have a long list of industrial type of uses and distribution warehousing uses that are permitted there. The area of the county that this parcel resides in is along Highway 74 between the Lattimore and Morrisboro area along the north side of the highway. It's accessed off of a Peachtree Road, which intersects 74 there, just beyond Lattimore. An aerial shows us the makeup of this area. You can see that the characteristic is large tracts of land, single-family dwellings, and then you've got the Highway 74, and then you've got the fiberglass plant, which was established there close to 20 years ago. Zoning districts in the area include the light industrial, which covers the parcels that are owned by Mr. Beeson. And then you've got some residential surrounding that on both sides of 74. We're calling this area in our land use plan, we're calling it secondary growth. And it's like the last case. It's really heavy on residential, and it talks a lot about future residential development in the area. But then it also tells you that industrial and commercial uses can be a fit as long as they're placed in a place that makes sense and that they can be supported. Planning Board has reviewed and recommend approval. Their comment was that the requested district would be seen as an extension of an already existing light industrial zoning district. And again, with this one, we're asking for you to hold a public hearing, and you may approve or deny the request.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris before we open the public hearing? All right, seeing none, public hearing is now open. No one signed up for that either, right, Madam Clerk?
Correct.
So with that, the public hearing is now closed. To the board to deliberate.
It looks to me like what he said, the planning board it makes it an extension of what's already zoned. If nobody has any questions, I'll make a motion we approve.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve the request. With that, any further discussion? I hear none, all in favor will say aye. Anyone opposed? All right, that motion too carries unanimous. All right. Thank you, Chris, for all that. Items. So now we're to the regular agenda. At this time, I recognize the county manager to give an update on the Justice Center project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Before you this evening, just have a very high-level overview of the Cleveland County Justice Center project timeline, the budget, as well as oversight. So the initiation of the Justice Center project, the conceptual design was September of 2021. The county identified Mosley Architects in December of 21 to be the architect and by extension provide the engineering services. In May of 2022, Yates Metcon was selected as the construction manager at risk for the project, essentially the general contractor. And then you can see project execution occurred in May of 2024. Now, between that May 2022 to 24, there was pre-construction work. There were a lot of conversations and meetings between county staff, the architect, and Yates Metcon to discuss the development of the project, value engineering, and the like. And it arrived, or the group arrived at a guaranteed maximum price, which Yates Metcon presented to the county in May of 24. Moving forward, the project, of course, is going to be phased in terms of moving from the existing Justice Center into the new Justice Center. And as you can see, starting in December of this year. So the Sheriff's Office is identified in phase one. That will occur in November, coming up this November. Followed by phase two, it'll be the detention center will then move over from the existing courthouse or Justice Center into the new Justice Center. And then we'll close that out with all the court services, public defender, district attorney, register of deeds, the judges, the magistrates. They will move in December of 2026 this year. And then that'll quickly be followed by the demolition of the existing courthouse. And why that's important is the front of our new Justice Center, the parking lot in the plaza is right where the existing Justice Center is. So they will begin the demolition of the existing courthouse, the out parcels, as well as the parking lots. And all total, that work will be completed in June of 27. That date has not moved. That is the final, all activities being completed is June of 2027. But in terms of the building being ready to be occupied, we're looking at the fourth quarter of this year. So the project budget at a glance, the project funding sources. In broad categories, we had the SCIF, or the State Capital Infrastructure Funds, totaling just over $103 million. And then between capital reserves, the limited obligation bonds of $75 million that were issued, sales tax reimbursement, interest, and a few other miscellaneous revenues, that total is just over $106 million for a project total of $209,650,058. How that balances out, you'll see here, I'd referenced the guaranteed maximum price, the GMP. It's basically the bricks and mortar. Everything going into erecting the structure is just under $187 million. And then what are referred to, of course, you know, this is soft costs, all the professional services, the building permits, the IT infrastructure that we need, the furniture to upfit it. Those all total are just under $23 million for, again, a balanced budget between the two, between the revenues and what it costs. So some of the project oversight that I did want to point out, between commissioner meetings and work sessions, the Justice Center singularly has been identified and discussed at 26 commissioner meetings or workshops since 2019. News articles and stories, it has appeared in 23 of those since 2021. Direct oversight, meaning county staff, county representatives. We have held roughly 110 owner, architect, and contractor OAC meetings. We've had over 50 site tours and inspections since 2024. Some of the external oversight, really the most important in terms of external oversight, is going to be our local government commission, the LGC. They're the ones who oversee all local governments within North Carolina and evaluate projects like this on a monthly basis. They meet, they determine the ability of a county or of a municipality to pay back a debt. And of course, we did receive that. That's why we do have that $75 million in limited obligation bonds to close out the project. So I would say there were multiple meetings with the local government commission, representatives preparing for that meeting where it was presented and ultimately approved. And then subject matter experts, it would, like hiring an architect or an engineer, you need them when you need them, but they are very costly to maintain on staff. So so goes for financial consulting assistance. We engaged Davenport Lawrence for that. They helped us put together the LOB package, the loans, and then consulting contract auditing. That is Fort Hill. They specialize in that. They have thus far submitted 2 audits for us. We had a mid project, and then we asked for an additional one, and then they will offer one at the end of the project to close it out. So we had a mid project, which was scheduled. We had an interim in between that, and then we will have a closeout. So just wanted to go over those basic high-level details for the board and for the public.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
What questions does the board have?
Okay.
Any questions? All right. Well, thank you, Dave.
Thank you, sir.
David.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Before we adjourn, commissioners, any commissioners have anything they'd like to report? David, I asked, could you briefly comment, I don't know, that, so the recent grant that was received for the farmers market in Kings Mountain?
Yes, sir. The county, in partnership, well, the Cooperative Extension led the way for that. The county did receive a $500,000 grant to construct the pavilion for the Kings Mountain Farmers Market. We are in the process of developing and returning the application and getting that money in hand so that we can start the construction, well, the design and then the construction shortly thereafter in earnest. So really looking forward to that.
Thanks, sir. Any other staff? Jonathan?
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right. Anybody else have anything before we adjourn? All right, the next meeting of the Cleveland County Board of Commissioners will be held on Tuesday, September the 15th, 2026, here in the chambers, beginning at 6 p.m. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Have a motion second to adjourn. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.